The CIA just confirmed everything we said was crazy. Geoengineering is real. The documents are public. And if you're just finding out now, you're already years behind watch before they delete this. This is the meaning of CIA CRD 780051A. It's not some blurry second-generation copy hidden on the dark web. It's a clean, official PDF housed deep within a legitimate government archive site. The CIA itself, after years of absolute unwavering public denial, simply admitted it. Geoengineering, specifically stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, is not a fringe theory. It is a documented, historical, and entirely real operational concept, known internally as Project CIRRUS. This project has roots stretching back decades, far deeper than any official history suggests, involving extensive interagency cooperation that crossed both military and civilian boundaries, receiving top-tier funding, even during periods of public budget austerity. The initial research wasn't even conducted by the CIA, but covertly outsourced to seemingly innocuous atmospheric science divisions at major universities and private think tanks, effectively laundering the research through academia. This document is a scientific instruction manual for atmospheric warfare, filled with dry, technical jargon. The authors, listed only by code numbers, discuss the dispersal of reflective agents into the upper atmosphere, a deliberate, man-made attempt to manipulate the climate. Specifically, the document outlines the highly sensitive use of aerosolized barium salts and aluminum oxides, engineered to maximize reflectivity and charge density in the ionosphere, forming what they clinically call atmospheric lenses. These lenses can be deployed with surgical precision over specific areas using custom-fitted, high-altitude aircraft. But beneath the antiseptic language of equations and dispersal methodologies lies a terrifying implication: the catastrophic unintended consequences, detailed in a brief footnote: unintended precipitation modification, sudden electromagnetic interference, and severe localized weather destruction. The document explicitly mentions a statistical model showing a 90% probability of severe side effects within 5 years of full deployment, including shifts in global wind patterns and ocean currents. The key isn't the science, it's the timing. This document, which confesses to the ability to modify rainfall, was released on a specific date in May of last year, a date that coincidentally, but impossibly, falls just 4 days after one of the worst, most unexpected regional droughts in recorded memory. They confessed to the ability to steal the rain when the ground was still cracked and begging for water, using the natural crisis as cover for their admission. I noticed something else. Something small that a casual observer would overlook. A digital timestamp deep in the metadata. The document was posted to the public server at exactly 11:33 a.m. and 42 seconds. The first major wire service reporting on the CIA admission went live at 11:37 a.m. and 55 seconds. That is a window of 4 minutes and 13 seconds. This hyper-specific, narrow margin is a time frame too precise, too coordinated for an organic discovery by a major news organization or an individual researcher working through bureaucratic archives. This wasn't a leak. It was a highly controlled release, a strategic, calculated admission designed not to expose the truth, but to manage it. It suggests pre-written headlines, pre-approved talking points, and possibly even server capacity preparation were all ready to go the moment the document hit the server, confirming that this partial truth was merely the first move in a much larger chess game of global perception. This level of synchronization suggests not just secrecy, but total information dominance, orchestrated at the highest level of government. As damning as the document is, what it hides is even more unsettling. Across 3 different pages, spanning a discussion of operational assets, there is a repeating set of fully redacted lines. Underneath the heavy black bars is the code name for an internal project. It's mentioned 3 times. Each occurrence struck out with an unyielding consistency. Project Nimbus-Twenty-Four. The CIA confessed to geoengineering, but they went to extreme lengths to ensure the name of this particular project never saw the light, even when disclosing everything else. The black bars covering Nimbus-Twenty-Four are the deepest layer of the lie, a ghost in the machine. The question that grounds the investigation that forces us deeper into the system is simple. What was Nimbus-Twenty-Four? And why did they ensure its name never saw the light? The answer is buried in a separate, completely inaccessible layer of history, a history the agency tried to scrub clean long before this partial admission was ever planned, knowing that name held the true operational key. The trail of Nimbus-Twenty-Four leads us not into easy-to-access digital archives, but into the physical world of silence and dust. My search begins in the vast, quiet depths of the National Archives. Specifically, a low-level wing devoted to post-Cold War defense appropriations and atmospheric science funding, a place where the public records are stored in miles of climate-controlled shelving. The air here smells of ozone and old, brittle paper, the cold, dry scent of history trying to hold its breath against extinction, preserved by the same government that now denies it. The sheer scale of the storage space feels oppressive, a fortress built of paper secrets. The digital records for Nimbus-Twenty-Four hit a brick wall, yielding only system errors and DNS failures designed to loop the inquirer back to the public document. But the related physical documents, archived memos, and interagency correspondences tied tangentially to early SAI funding still exist. I found an old, faded memo concerning budget allocations from 1987, a seemingly innocuous defense spending report. It had been redacted, hastily, with thick black marker, a sign of panic rather than proper procedure executed by someone who didn't fully understand the classification protocols. But the marker had aged poorly, deteriorating faster than the paper itself. Holding the paper up to a specific, high-intensity ultraviolet light, I could just make out a faint, underlying impression, the ghost of a name beneath the ink: the Alamosa Environmental Research Center. This center was utterly unlisted in any modern public database, a place seemingly erased from the modern map of U.S. facilities, a ghost in the vast governmental real estate inventory, yet clearly central to the operation. The discovery of the center's name provided the first hard connection to a human victim of this secrecy. 30 years ago, a brilliant but highly discredited meteorologist named Dr. Elias Thorne published a paper that predicted the precise side effects of SAI technology. A paper that was universally ridiculed and immediately resulted in the complete demise of his academic career, labeling him a paranoid outcast and driving him from his field into poverty. His research was dismissed as dangerous fiction, yet it perfectly predicted the document's footnotes and the catastrophic failures it only hinted at. Now, sitting here in the archives, the specific equations and diagrams in his paper perfectly match the redacted scientific methodology described in the official CIACRD 780051A. This means he didn't just guess. It means his life was ruined to protect the very secret the CIA just admitted. This makes him the first casualty of the managed truth, a truth that cost him everything and confirms the longevity of the cover-up. I attempted to request the files for the newly discovered Alamosa Research Center. I presented the accession number to the archivist, a polite man with tired eyes and a badge that looked decades old, and waited, feeling the weight of the moment. He checked the ledger, looked up, and delivered the first chilling moment of obstruction with perfect bureaucratic calm. "I am sorry, sir. Those specific files were transferred to an off-site facility 2 days ago. They were gone. The exact files related to the specific research center I found under a deliberate, illegal redaction were whisked away within 48 hours of my search, proving the system is actively monitoring even the deepest recesses of its own archive and anticipating any line of genuine inquiry." Later that day, the stakes shifted from historical curiosity to immediate, personal risk. An encrypted email arrived from an anonymous sender. The body was blank. Attached was a single, high-resolution image, a photograph of my own apartment building, taken from a great distance, showing the specific window of my office. The feeling wasn't fear, but a cold, heavy confirmation. They are watching the one thing they couldn't bury. The implication is that the archival transfer was not a coincidence. It was a direct response to my query. A signal that I had crossed an invisible, highly guarded line of inquiry. The message was clear: abandon the search. If you've been following this investigation, you know the risks are real. Hit subscribe now, because if this video vanishes, you'll know where to look next. The discredited meteorologist's research paper, the physical copy I managed to get before the rest disappeared, contains one final anomaly. On the inside cover, there is a hand-drawn map. It's rough, incomplete, and marked with a single, deeply circled point in the desolate, southwestern Nevada desert, miles from any major highway or town. The location matches the general area where the long-forgotten Alamosa Environmental Research Center would have been established. The investigation is now forced to pivot from the quiet archives of history to the loud, empty vastness of the American West. The answers are no longer in documents, they are in steel and concrete, miles from any witness, waiting to be discovered. The journey to the site is a study in relentless emptiness. The sun beats down, baking the scrubland as the tires grind over miles of forgotten gravel roads, kicking up massive plumes of rust-colored dust that hang heavy in the air. The heat is oppressive, a visceral contrast to the cold documents we left behind, and the vast silence is broken only by the engine and the constant wind. Finally, the research station appears, sitting like a derelict monument against the red rock, a stark gray shape against the horizon. A chain-link fence, topped with menacing coils of new, silver barbed wire, surrounds the complex, reflecting the harsh sunlight. Despite the dusty, abandoned appearance, a low, unnerving hum vibrates in the air, the sound of massive machinery running silently, somewhere below the surface. The entire area feels deliberately neglected, a perfect camouflage for something fully operational and highly classified, designed to repel casual inspection. The most profound piece of evidence here is not a document, but a structural anomaly. The facility is dominated by a single, colossal broadcast tower, clearly designed for upper atmospheric work, but it is surrounded by three smaller, equally large antenna arrays. These arrays use technology that should have been obsolete since the 1970s, massive parabolic dishes that seem out of place. Yet they are clearly meticulously maintained, with new bolts, fresh coats of high-grade sealant, and perfectly tuned alignment. Even more telling, the main tower is fed by three separate, industrial-grade power conduits, each thicker than a man's torso, and encased in concrete, a massive, costly redundancy that makes no sense for a simple meteorological station. This isn't a meteorological facility. It's a military synchronization hub designed for massive power delivery, and the hum below suggests it's still waiting for a command, drawing invisible power from the grid. We find our way in, bypassing the perimeter and descending into a hidden sub-level access door, masked behind a commonplace utility closet that should have contained cleaning supplies. The air changes instantly, becoming cold and sterile, a mechanical environment cut off from the desert heat. Down here, there are no dust-covered weather balloons or analog barometers. The cavernous space is filled instead with rows of glowing server racks, humming with immense processing power, and giant, looping cables running into the walls of massive, industrial-grade magnetic containment fields. The sheer energy infrastructure suggests power requirements far beyond simple research, likely the capacity to fire enormous bursts of targeted energy into the atmosphere. The entire lower level is designed for power distribution and focusing. The feeling of isolation and forbidden knowledge is complete when a critical moment of tension forces an immediate retreat. Suddenly, violently, all power in the facility shuts down. The emergency lights flicker once, then become inoperative, plunging us into total darkness. The only light left is the thin beam of my flashlight, cutting through the absolute darkness. In the sudden silence, the sound of my own breathing is deafening, amplifying the cold fear. As I turn to find the exit, the beam catches a chilling detail, a fresh, clean, military-grade boot print pressed into the fine dust of the concrete floor. The print had not been there when we entered. We were not alone. Someone had just been here, and they knew we were inside, confirming their internal monitoring system was not only sophisticated but manned. During the frantic rush out, past the sparking server racks and the silent, cold containment fields, I grabbed the only piece of physical evidence I could find, a single, curled piece of thermal paper sticking out of an industrial printer located near a command console. It was a log printout, damaged and crinkled, but the data was terrifyingly clear. It showed a precise 6-digit GPS coordinate and a single entry for operational cycle, commencing in 0 hours, 4 minutes, and 18 seconds. 4 minutes and 18 seconds. The coordinates are not on Earth. They plot to a precise location in space, a geosynchronous orbit position directly over the continental United States, precisely where a fixed, high-value weather satellite would hold its position. The 4 minutes and 18 seconds is the key. That time frame exactly matches the 4 minutes and 13 seconds of the coordinated document release from Chapter 1. The countdown timer was slightly off, likely due to transmission lag or a final system check, but the connection is undeniable. The controlled CIA admission was timed to a satellite operation. The conspiracy is not a terrestrial secret. It is literally extraterrestrial, conducted from the absolute vacuum of space using the codename Nimbus-Twenty-Four. The ground facility is merely the trigger. I'm back in the silence of the safe house, the data spread across 3 screens, the constant hum of the desert facility still ringing in my ears, replaced now by the quiet whir of cooling fans. The camera focuses intensely on the connections. On one screen, the CIA CRD 780051A document. On the second, the log printout from the sub-level facility. On the third, a live tracking map of geosynchronous satellites, highlighting the single orbital position found on the log, the location of Project Nimbus-Twenty-Four. The core operational secret is now devastatingly clear. The redundant ground arrays were not for backup. They were for synchronization. They were the command and control structure for the orbital asset, the ground element directing the space-based weapon. The true purpose of the array is not to change the weather on a whim, but to direct it, using a mechanism called plasma-enhanced ionospheric heating. Nimbus-Twenty-Four is an orbital reflector, using the ground arrays to precisely aim and focus enormous amounts of energy into the ionosphere, creating atmospheric pressure systems capable of steering entire weather fronts and manufacturing localized disasters. This is not about fighting global warming. It's about control over the planet's most fundamental resource. As I tracked the operational dates, the air in this safe house felt colder, heavier, because I realized I wasn't looking at historical records. I was looking at the coordinates of the next planned atmospheric engagement. This technology was never about climate remediation. It was about strategic resource dominance and geopolitical coercion. We can now track the operational dates on the log printout against specific, politically advantageous drought or deluge events from the past 20 years. Every time the log shows an activation, a competitor nation or a political rival experiences an economically destructive weather event, a failed harvest, an unexpected flood, or a sudden deep freeze, while the sponsoring power gains a massive agricultural or financial advantage through controlled scarcity, profiting from the misery they manufactured. The conspiracy is a continuous act of silent, atmospheric warfare, waged without a single projectile being fired and leaving no conventional evidence, only natural disasters. The sudden, horrifying realization hits like a physical blow. The entire geoengineering conspiracy is not about hiding a secret technology. It is about making the public accept the engineered weather as normal, natural, and random fluctuation. The CIA admission was a managed lie, designed to make the public debate the existence of the technology, not its intent as a weapon of resource control and population management. They are conditioning us to believe the sky is unpredictable, so we never question the control, effectively hiding the weapon in plain sight and turning us all into unwitting subjects of their experiment. Just as I am about to voice the final, horrifying conclusion, a sudden, high-pitched metallic noise rips through the audio recording. It's a deliberate frequency jammer, precisely targeted to my location, affecting not just my computer, but the entire broadcast signal. The screen flickers violently, and for a split second, an unfamiliar classified logo, the true identity of the deep state organization, flashes across the monitor. The logo was a simple stylized eye, ringed with 3 stars and a Latin inscription, but it belongs to a shadow council that controls resources across 3 continents, a group far more powerful than the CIA itself. They were listening, and they knew I saw their signature. The physical distance of the safe house was irrelevant. They operate above the law and above the atmosphere, communicating through untraceable high-frequency bursts that bypass all conventional security. The people behind this don't want you thinking about the real questions. Tell me, what is the worst-case scenario if they control the rain? Let me know in the comments. As the jammer signal fades, a final, massive file folder appears on the terminal. It is not marked Project Nimbus-Twenty-Four. It is marked Contingency II. The previous operation, the weather control, was merely Contingency I. The file is highly technical, detailing massive energy consumption requirements, orbital deployment specifications, and global political frameworks necessary for its execution. I scan the document for minutes, searching for the core text, until I find one phrase that chills me to the core. Unintended consequence mitigation. Complete global atmospheric shield deployment. A 5-year window. This suggests the weather control itself has a fail-safe, a final backup plan against a massive world-ending solar flare or cosmic event, a project that requires the full global assent of every nation, essentially forcing all world governments into compliance under the guise of salvation. The room is silent and dark. The investigation is over, at least for now. I speak in a low, almost reluctant voice, emphasizing the terrible weight of the evidence. We've seen the truth, now we have to live with it. The contents of Contingency II outline a global project using the exact same SAI technology to deliberately build a massive, reflective atmospheric shield around the entire planet, effectively dimming the sun. It is presented in the document as a necessary, defensive maneuver to save humanity from an incoming existential threat that is, incidentally, likely accelerated by the decades of Contingency I operations and the destabilization of the atmosphere. This is the double lie. The CIA's official admission in Chapter 1 was merely a partial truth designed to acclimate the public to the technology, to prepare the world to accept Contingency II when it is inevitably revealed, not as a weapon, but as a rescue mission from a crisis they may have helped accelerate. The control was the plan. The shield is the exit strategy, a global structure built on a foundation of deception that will permanently alter the planet's environment and grant them total uncontested control over the atmosphere. A news broadcast plays silently in the background of the shot. It details a minor, random weather anomaly occurring off the coast of New England, unusually warm currents leading to unexpected coastal fog that is causing shipping delays and closing a major port. The local news reports it as an unusual, but natural, cold weather front. But looking at the data, I recognize the subtle, non-natural signature of the geoengineering, the specific barometric distortion tied to the orbital asset, indicating the fog was deliberately steered to bottleneck trade and exert economic pressure. The operation is still active. They have not stopped, even while we watch, proving their continuous impunity and reach into global commerce. I close the laptop. The video ends not with a bang of final discovery, but with the quiet, persistent hum of the discovered facility's operational systems, now overlaid on the final audio. The investigation is over, but the cycle continues. The heat had faded from the thermal paper log on the desk, but the silent counter, the one that governs the orbital asset, had already begun its countdown. It knows the operation is not finished, and now, so do we. The final words of the narration are a warning, a desperate call to action. They admitted the truth, but they only showed us the cover. Share this video everywhere, because the only way we stop Contingency II from becoming our future is to make sure the world knows contingency. I was never a myth. The video fades to black on a static shot of the desk. In the frame, a small, almost invisible detail is revealed. The thermal paper log from the facility is still there, illuminated by a sliver of light, and the 4-minute countdown timer has silently reset. The cycle is beginning again, somewhere above the clouds, ready for its next command. The admission of Project CIRRUS only revealed the cover. The real danger lies in the silence surrounding Contingency II, proving that the weather isn't the only thing they control. If you want to keep pushing back against the strategic deception, hit the subscribe button and share this with anyone who refuses to accept the official narrative. What is the single most terrifying implication of controlling the global atmosphere? Leave your answer in the comments below. Because the orbital asset is still active, the clock has reset, and the next piece of this global puzzle is already being positioned overhead. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.